Hi everyone, welcome. I'm going to show you a simple technique in carving called the twist. Now we don't do this while the lathe is on, but we use the lathe to hold it. It's a spiral pattern, and to get that spiral pattern we're going to learn to graph an object. Graphing an object now opens up possibilities for putting patterns on things, burning things, carving, cutting, painting. It's just a technique we're going to use to as a way of decorating the objects that we're making. So I'm excited to be here, and let's go look at what we got. What do these pieces have in common? They all contain an element called the twist. The twist is actually a very simple technique for cutting spirals around pieces in different lengths and different tightnesses and loosenesses. And it's really something you can use on finials or boxes, or just as a little highlight in something that you're doing. They can be used on vessels and bowls. So really it's about us learning to start graphing 3D objects and then carving them. So let's get going. The first decorative technique I'm going to show you is the twist. Now here's a sample of a twist, some demo box that I made. And the twist has ropes. So it's kind of the way you know it is that it looks like a twisted rope. This one has two, so here's one rope and here's the second rope. We could have one rope. We could have 16 ropes. And the way we determine it is by how many horizontal lines we put onto our piece on the lathe. Now I want 2 ropes, so that means I multiply however many ropes I want by 2. That gives me 4, and that means I'm going to divide this piece into 4 equal parts and then make 4 horizontal lines. So I do it with paper. It's just really easy. You're not worried about math errors. And I just take the piece, wrap it around the circumference wherever it touches. I cut it at that point, fold it, and fold it. Now if you're going to do 16 different sections, which means you have to fold this 32 times, because if you want 16 ropes you have to double that number, and that's how many horizontal lines you need to put on. If I keep folding this like this, it has a certain thickness, so I'm going to start not being accurate. So once I get past these 4, if I had to, I would just start folding individual sections, but I'm just going to go to these 4. Mark them with a pencil so it's easy for you to see. And then wrap it back around your piece in the place that it was. We have to find the place where these 2 ends touch. So we're right about there. Right there. So I'm going to put a mark there, mark there, mark there. This is how I do it. You just do it any way that works for you. I just find this to be very simple. I have to do this all the time for architectural pieces, so balusters and newel posts, things like that. And so even if I was doing something really big, I would do it exactly the same way. So now I push the tool rest up close to my piece, so it's actually hard for me to turn this. And I put my line right here, and I make a line. Turn it one more section, put my pencil here, make a line. Again, I'm keeping it tight, my tool rest really tight to the piece so that my pencil doesn't wobble up and down. If it starts to wobble, you're going to get a irregular line. And we're trying to be as accurate as we can. Okay, so there's 4 horizontal lines. Now I often have to reproduce something that somebody brings me. So in order to reproduce this angle, we'll say, what I would have to do is I would measure from here to here. These are called valleys. The low spots are called valleys. The very top of this is called a peak. And that might be actually easier to see in a more traditional, here's a more traditional kind of a twist because it's round. This is the one we're going to do. So here's the valley and here's the peak, which is the point of this right here. So let's just say we were going to do a little section like this. This is going to be my sampler piece. It's really good to just take a piece of wood and try different samples along it. So we're just going to do a little sample from here to here. So if I wanted to reproduce this, I would just measure what is the distance from here to here, and let's say that was 5/8. Then I would divide this in 5/8. Then I have to think about the depth of the valley. By putting a ruler across this, I can measure that and say I can see the distance from the valley to where the pencil is let's just say theoretically it's 1/4 of an inch. So if I needed to reproduce it, those are the elements I would need to know. So we're just going to try to make this easy for ourselves. So we're just going to take the distance from here to here, and we're going to divide it up into some kind of an equal number. So I'm going to measure this, and I'm at 3 inches. So I'm just going to pick 1/2 inch increments because that's just going to be easy for this demo. All right, but these are going to be my vertical lines. These vertical lines determine the angle that the twist is at. For instance, here's a project or a little sampler my friend Martha did. So she has an angle like this, and then as she gets over here, the angle of this starts to tighten up like this, okay? So she started by making a long distance and then shortening these vertical spaces in order to get this kind of organic look. We're just going to do a very regimented, simple division here, just so that you can get the gist of this. So once we've divided this by 4, giving us 2 ropes, and we've divided this into 1/2 inch segments, and what's going to happen is that one of these lines is going to be our peak, and then the line on either side is going to be our valley, but it's going to be at a diagonal. So the next thing I do is I make a diagonal line. Now I like to use these, our friends at IKEA make all these plastic placemats, and I find they're very handy for gluing, for doing these kinds of markings of these 3D objects. And we have to connect the diagonals corner to corner. So we basically made graph paper. It's rectangular graph paper, but it's graph paper. And now we're following that graph one cell at a time and putting a diagonal in it. Now I'm going around in a circle because I'm trying to give you the idea of how this twist happens like this. But in reality, when I'm marking, because I know how it goes, I just go down a row like this, and I know they're all going to connect, but it's much faster to just go like this, row by row. All right, so there I am. Now, I need to be able to differentiate my pattern here because, wow, if you look at it in one way, it looks like almost like long diamonds, but I want to be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to take a magic marker and I'm just going to highlight the lines that are going to be the valley of my piece. Just follow it right up. So that's a valley. This pencil line is a peak, so this pencil line is going to be a valley. So I'm doing peaks and valleys, dividing them up. Now I'm going to cut this. You don't have to do a great job on this line. Just I often like to actually use a light colored magic marker so I can see the pencil line through it, but it's really, we're going to cut this with a saw, so we just need to see where it is. All right, we're going to use this saw. I like to use a flexible saw, and now we have to decide about the depth of our groove. How deep in are we going to go? And that's going to be totally up to you. I'm going to go in about, I don't know, 3/16 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to just figure out where that is on my saw and put blue tape. Now, a couple things. I put all my lines diagonally this way, but they could have just as easily gone in the other direction. A lot of times in Victorian details, there might be a little section where everything's going in this direction, and next to it is a section where everything's going in this direction. So I'm just choosing to go this way. You could go this way also. This, I'm going to saw down and to the depth of this. Now it's important this saw is flexible. You don't want a ridge on the back of this, because as we saw, as we do the sawing, you're going to see this is going to flex a little bit. So there's my tape. I'm going to saw on this line till I see I'm hitting this tape, and then I'm going to move to the next section, and I'm going to go till I hit the tape. Now here's a situation right here. Your tool rest is in the way, so get it out. If anything's in your way, move it. And then I come back, and I'll just keep coming here. Now I'm setting the depth of my valley so I'm going to cut down to get those nice curves like in the box I showed you. So I need to be consistently hit that depth. And it's really just my guide. So, you can see I have to kind of do this one little section at a time. So, stop there. All right, so then I come to this one. Now this saw wasn't very expensive. I just got it at Lowe's, I think. Alright, so I'm sawed to my depth. Now I need to go find a really sharp chisel, and I just use a regular flat woodworker's chisel, and I'm going to go find one. So I'm locked nice and tight, and that's not moving, but I'm going to be pounding on this. I'm going to be taking this chisel and hitting this down on this. And so I like to support this from underneath. So I'll often just take my tool rest and I'll put it below my piece like this, and then just lift it up. And that just gives you a support, so while you're hitting it, you're not bending it and ripping it out of its points. I have this regular carpenter's chisel, which is really just like our turning tools. It has a bevel, cutting edge, and then it has this one, except it's flat. This has a flat side. Now usually we use this with the bevel, but what happens is if we use the bevel with this, we're way up here, and our arm is, very taxed by that position. So I like to turn this over. So I'm going to pick this place that's like 1/4 of the way back, tip this down my arm is able to stay against my side, and I'm going to hit down like that. And I'm going to work my way around. Just taking this quarter in my mind, I'm seeing dividing between the center point and the valley. I'm going halfway and then hitting down to what I think is my bottom. Now don't worry if you get some chips and you didn't quite get down to it. We'll get back to that. As I do this, I don't reach around. I don't go over the top and around like this because it changes the position of your body. Now in my other demos I keep talking about the importance of being a machine, and this is the same thing. As long as your body's in the same position, you're going to get consistency of cutting. So I keep my range from here to here, and I move the piece instead of moving my body around. And that keeps me getting this very consistent cut. And it keeps my movements tight and simple. So I'll finish this up. Okay, so I am finished with that row, and now I have to do the other side. Now, if I change my whole position and come over here, I'm going to get a totally different cut. So what we always do is, so our body can stay the same, we're going to flip this over and put it in. So as we do the other side, we're coming at it in exactly the same motion. So I've turned it around, and now I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Here's my peak. In my mind, I'm going to choose this halfway between the peak and the valley, and I'm going to work my way around. Okay, so look what I have. I have this almost kind of a curved piece. When we're making a curve, it's very common. This is how sometimes if I have to hand carve the neck of a guitar, here's my cylinder, and here's my cuts down. We always think of it this way. Here's my peak, here's my quarter, my quarter. So I've cut down like this, and I've cut down like this. And there's my peak, and here's my quarter, my quarter. I've cut down like this, and I've cut down like this. So it's given me these facets. If we now choose a point here and cut here, all on one side, now you see this curve starting to form right here. All right? So that's kind of how we do curves. We start with a square, take corners off, keep taking corners off. The more corners we take off like this, the rounder the piece gets. Now, just as a little sidebar, when I'm turning a bead, when you're on your lathe turning a bead, I think of it in this same way. I start here at the quarter and I turn down to the depth I want my bead. Like this. Just down like that. with my I use a spindle gouge, but you could use a skew or a spindle gouge. So I turn down. Then I come to what I think is the peak of my bead, and I turn over like this. So I do it in 2 motions. Quarter it, and it helps you get a more consistent curve if you think of it that way. So I have a lot of ways I can do this. And this is going to also depend on what look you're going for. Some people like a very faceted look. I'm just going to go like this and take this facet off like this. And I'm not trying to get, I'm leaving the pencil mark of the peak, but I'm just working my way, taking off that kind of that corner like that. And then undo it, go to the next one, same thing. Now you could have started like this. Say you're doing a little finial. You don't even need to do any pounding. You could just come in with a file or a chisel and skip a lot of these steps. I have to do this because I have big masses of wood. I'm only doing the left side, and that's because the grain is going this way. So on this side of my peak, if the grain is going this way like this, and I'm cutting it at an angle like this, I need to think of this as the fur of a dog. I need to pet the dog, the fur down. This grain, if I start to switch over here, and this is sticking out, and I come and try to do this side, I'm actually going to be lifting the grain. So I'm just doing my left side, and then I'll turn it over and do my right side. Okay, so I pretty much have it on this side. You might want to, anything that you see is not quite right here, I could just come here and get some of those out. And now I'm going to flip it around again. Now as I do this, I don't know if you can tell, I'm sliding this way. I can just go like this because my chisel is really, really sharp, but the grain changes as we go around. So this kind of a sideways slicing motion is pretty much good on all grain, and you tend not to catch as much. I'm holding this tool with 2 hands. We never do this. That's like a recipe for disaster. 2 hands, always on a sharp tool. That's really important. So the more I do this, the rounder it becomes. So I want to get just most of this ridge off. Okay, this is very satisfying. You're going to look and you can see that I have some ragged cuts in the middle. I'm not too worried about this valley right now. And I've just roughly got this domed. So now we're going to switch to a rasp. Once I get this far, now I'm going to go at it with a rasp. Now this is it's called an Aru or an Ario rasp. It's just a they're hand cut, and it's really sharp. I just find this to be the best thing ever. Now on this particular rasp, I'm actually sharp here on this edge. I have a curve here and a flat here, so I'm going to try to utilize that. I'm going to put the flat in my valley like this and just try to even out my line of my valley so it's all on exactly the same line. So I'm exaggerating my movement, but just so you can get the gist here. And I'll work my way around like that so that I first get every valley nice and round. And you see the motion I'm doing with my hand is a round motion. I'm not going like this. I'm going round so that it follows the curve that I want. I often undo the lock here at this point and just work my way around like this, turning it with my hand. That helps you get this round motion. All right, so it's already looking better. Now, I'm going to go to the flat of this, and I'm going to go to this again, just the right side, and I'm going to move this up and down to the pencil line. And my whole purpose of this is going to be to the pencil line is getting the facets out of each side. So let's get a close-up of that. So your movement is forward and toward the line and toward your pencil line. So it's this kind of a motion, nice and long. You're going to use it whenever you're using a rasp. Use the entire length of it, and it's going to give you this, help you get a consistent line and a nice curve. Now a lot of people say to me, oh, can't you just do this with the lathe on? And I'm like, no. This is just torture. You're just going to have to do this by hand. I do a lot of these because I do a lot of stair work in my business. And you get really fast at it. And if I'm doing a ton of these, I actually I use an auto mach, which is an automatic chisel, and I just sharpen the blade really sharp, and I try to get my cuts, say I had to do 24 balusters, I just really try to get consistent about my cut the first time through so that everything is done as I go and I don't have to keep going back to anything. And then I still have to do this. Come in and feather everything together by hand. And now I'm going to flip it to the other side. Alright, so you can see what I'm getting here. I'm getting a curve. Now, you have to decide how curved is this going to be. I mean, we have a lot of different looks we can go for. I used to have to do this when I lived in Boston because of all the Victorian architecture. So you can decide to have this round. If you go, you can have this sharp, these lines sharp. If you wanted it to look undulating, you would come to a round rasp and take this center down like this, and this is a look you can get where you're getting this kind of undulation and you're getting a peak like this. And this gives you a kind of more of a ropey look. And it's kind of more linear. And then if I didn't like that, but I still want this undulation, I would just come back and take this off. So we're just laying out this pattern, but your possibilities of how you could finish it off are endless. For instance, this is a bead, which is an outward. So let's see what we would do if we were doing a flute, which is an inward curve. Let's say I wanted an inward flute. So here I've marked a new set of lines onto this piece, exactly the same as we did before, but now I have this round rasp, and I'm actually just going to not even go peak and valley. I'm just going to go in the middle of each of these, and I'm going to try to maintain the same motion as I go. Of course, this is going to give me many flutes. So there's an inward curve, and now I come to the center of the next one. So I don't even have to suffer through the other stuff. I just keep rasping until I hit my pencil lines and try to just keep looking and making sure everything is the same as I go. So this is called fluting. So you could flute an entire piece. It doesn't have to be a round bulbous shape. You could do this until these met in the middle in a kind of like a sharp fin. Now on this particular piece of poplar, I don't want it to meet with a sharp fin. I would do it as a flat because it's very fragile and it could break. But let's say you're going to do a tiny little one for a finial. They sell these tiny little rasps. So if you were going to rasp one of these flutes on a little finial, if you use cocobolo or ebony or some incredibly hard wood, you could sand until these two came together into a nice sharp peak because that wood is much harder. So we have no limitations. Look, here's a flat one. If I wanted the middle of something to be flat, I'd just go down with this and go flat and have something here, flat, something here. So the shape can be anything you want. Traditionally, this barley twist is just an architectural detail, tends to be like this, but you have no limitations. So really you mess with any file or rasp you have to get the shapes that you want. Alright, so that's the twist.